И, уважаемые студенты, мы приступаем к очередному этапу развития международного сотрудничества нашей кафедры и, прежде всего, студенческого сотрудничества в рамках международных программ. Сегодня у нас нет... Да.
Dear guests, today we are starting a new project, and we are really glad to see all of you here because it's an important event in the life of our department and our faculty as well. So we are here just to start this project and start this double degree program.
Мы рады видеть сегодня не гостей, а наших немецких партнеров.
We are very pleased to see here our German partners.
И поэтому я прошу представить Яну Владимировну, наших партнеров. Яна Владимировна, будьте без
And now let me introduce our German colleagues, our partners. Peter Reichlin, professor. He is the person who is responsible for international study programs in Magdeburg. And actually he is the person who is responsible for our double degree project we initiated.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Frau Schim, Karin Schim, she is the head of academic records at university named after Otto von Guericke, Magdeburg. She is our very old friend and colleague. We have been working with her for quite a long time. And Anna Krivko, she is assistant, professor's assistant, and she is the person who is actually also responsible for this project. She deals with all the papers concerned with the project, so you see the person who is actually one of the key people here in the project.
Сотрудничество нашего университета с Магдебургским университетом длится не первый год.
We have been working and we keep good contacts with Magdeburg University for a long time.
Сегодня мы вступаем в новую фазу.
Today is a period when we start a new step maybe in these relationships.
И я верю в то, что эта фаза будет столь же плодотворна, результативна, как и предыдущие годы работы.
And I strongly believe that this project would be such fruitful as the previous ones we had before, and so I have a strong belief in our further perspectives.
Я желаю удачи нашим студентам и плодотворной работы комиссии. Спасибо. Всего доброго. Добрый путь.
I wish a good luck for our students and fruitful work for our colleagues, for our examination board, I would say, in the responsible occasion. So thank you very much, and you are welcome. We are ready to start. Okay? Let me present you our first participant of our competition, Anastasia Tkachenko, and her report is devoted to the banking system of Ukraine. So you will start, Anastasia.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure for me to be here with you. And now let me present you my essay, which is a brief overview of the development of Ukrainian banking system. My purpose is to give an objective estimation of the development of Ukrainian banking system and its condition at all. The research has been focused on such directions. Where the foreign capital take place in handling the commercial banks of Ukraine, the role of foreign capital, and the credit policy of Ukrainian banking system. According to the first problem, it's very important to know that for 1st January 2010, there were 196 registered banks, 52 of them with the participation of foreign capital, and 20 banks with 100% foreign capital. The majority of banks are closed joint stock banks, and the role of foreign capital gradually increases. So the presence of foreign capital considerably promotes the stability of Ukrainian banking system. The main investors are from Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Austria, Russia, and France as well. In addition to that, it's very important to know that National Bank, the National Bank of Ukraine, allowed Deutsche Bank to open a subsidiary bank in Ukraine. Above all, the lack of resources is also evident, and 14 banks are in the process of liquidation. 26 banks were put under the temporary administration, and due to economic and financial crisis, the number of branches were diminished by 30%. There are a lot of problems in the Ukrainian banking system, like a burning need of capital to cover present-day and potential losses, especially after crisis are present. And some believe that there is a need of additional capitalization above 92 billion hryvnias. Also, it's important to know that the total owned capital of Ukrainian banks was 126 billion hryvnias. As for example, in England, the total owned capital of British banks was $3,500. That is approximately the same in Denmark and Austria. It shows that the low quality of income-earning assets and the weak operation environment are the key factors limiting the liquidity of the banking system of Ukraine. An important side of banking is the insurance of credit risks and the shortage of free resources. Because of this, Ukrainian banks were forced to considerably toughen their credit policy and raise their credit interest. Let's see out in the picture. The figures show that the low quality of assets got considerably worse as a proportion of non-performing loans went up. And the level of credit operation reverse was an 8.5%. However, some banks it exceeds up to 20%. That fact testifies that there are potentially problematic debts on balances of Ukrainian banks. And from the point of view of repayment of agriculture, operation industry, transport industry, and trade industry were the most problematic. So, this research has been focused on such directions: the role of foreign capital, the lack of resources, and the credit policy of Ukraine. The results of this analysis give all ground to believe in what condition is Ukrainian banking system and what aspects come to the fore and steer the banking system of Ukraine to develop and evolve in right way. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer your question.
Thank you very much. So typically we do it in Germany like that.
Yeah.
So, can you give us a bit more information about this slide, please? So it is, yes, it is non-performing loans, right?
Non-performing loans, yeah. And that slide means that the most, let's say, popular industries in Ukraine, like trade, like transport and building, is in the process of development, but they are not enough. They haven't got enough money to cope with some problems, and they must to have deposits from our Ukrainian banks, and they are also have lots of problems and troubles in it, like gaps, and they should promote their industries, and that's why they have a non-performing loans.
It happens, unfortunately. So, by the way, during your research on the work on your paper, have you heard about Basel II?
Yeah, I heard about Basel II.
Yeah, can you explain what that
it's
is?
Such like
Because it's strongly related to your topic.
It's like a framework of some international banks, and I think that it's not obligatory, but some banks should it include some rules within Ukrainian operation to develop and work in the right way. I think the second Basel Accord is the most maybe famous thing which our bank should include in their operation.
It's kind of controlling framework.
It's controlling about assets, about
equity.
Capital of banks,
Yeah.
and for example for 2008 the rate of banks should be against 8%, and according to our bank system I think it's much lower.
That is also true in Germany, but not because they don't follow Basel II, it's because equity is computed in a very different way in Basel II. But this is some specific point. I have one more question, if I'm allowed to. Yesterday I talked to a businessman from Ukraine, and he complained about increasing interest rates. Mm-hmm. So what happened after the crisis with the interest rate in Ukraine?
You mean interest rate of credit?
Yes.
Nowadays it's about, for example, of mortgage, credit mortgage, it's about 15 up to 17%, and for Ukraine it's much higher interest, and sometimes there is some troubles according to that, because much of industries and also like people, they sometimes can't afford it and can't do it at all, because it's sometimes not profitability to invest in such credits. It's possible to say it like that.
I have a difficult question, and the difficult question is, should they then take credit in euro or US dollars? Is that a good idea? So you know, if the interest rate, the local interest rate is 20% or 25%, and in euro, so in Germany, the interest rate is 6% or 7%, would it be a good idea to take credit in euros or in US dollars? Or is there risk?
I think the Ukrainian national currency is more risky, and there is some hazard to do it in Ukraine, because the level of influence is increasing all the time. And according to euros and dollars, I think it's possible to do it in euro, but also, for example, the credit risks of euros, and it's about 5% in Ukraine, and a little bit higher in dollars, like 7%, and I think it's approximately the same in euro. It's higher, but as for me, I think it's more preferable for our inhabitants to do it in national currency. Like,
why?
Because I think our government is do all the best and appreciate the national currency credits. That's why they do a lot of programs to increase it, like raise deposit interest rates, and try to minimize credit interest.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? So you talked about liquidation of the banks, Ukrainian banks. Could you please tell us some reasons for that?
As the first reason, I think the lack of resources.
Which resources?
Which resources? I mean the resources of capital bank and equity capital. And also the second problem is
how can you cause this problem if you don't have any, if you don't have sufficient equity, sufficient capital?
It's a problem because some banks have been.
Could you explain the relationship? What could follow if you don't have enough sufficient capital? What will happen?